because we're a couple professional broadcasters.
SportsCenter with Shane Dan brought to you by McDonald's. Go get your McDelivery. Enjoy it at home. Stay at home. Stay safe. We're thrilled that you tuned in. Lots of talk about the NHL potentially coming back in July or August, despite the fact that on Thursday they canceled the Calgary Stampede. Dan,
That's right.
I believe there's been a bit of an update.
Yeah, the NHL, they were considering neutral site games. At least that was being bandied about. That is now off the table. So if they do come back, where are the NHL going to play games? Let's find out from Gino and Frank.
Alongside Frank Sarvalli. And Frank, the league is considering resuming play in 4 centralized locations. And you've identified 4 cities as prime candidates: Toronto, Edmonton, Pittsburgh, and Dallas. What are the cases for Toronto and Edmonton?
Well, Gino, let's start in Edmonton, which would have to be near the top of any short list for the NHL, because that's been one of the least infected NHL cities as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then you talk about creating a safe environment for the players and league officials to restart things, and that certainly would be an option in Edmonton. You've got a gleaming new downtown arena, but connected to that is a practice rink with tons of space to host teams, and you don't even have to go outside to get to a luxury hotel that's owned by Oilers owner Darryl Cates that could certainly house up to 8 NHL teams. In Toronto, they have very similar infrastructure, and what's more important is the fact that Toronto has proven that they can host and pull off a big event, such as the 2016 World Cup of Hockey at Scotiabank Arena, where they housed 8 teams in that arena, and then they could also shuttle teams to Coca-Cola Coliseum, home of the Marlies, for practice, or the Ford Performance Center, which has 4 sheets. You hear Gary Bettman talk about the idea of needing lots of ice. Well, there's no question that Toronto has that, and tons of hotels, plus the league office and broadcast opportunities. They could even, Gino, host a 16-team Stanley Cup playoff, I believe, if push came to shove, but there's so many things to work out to get from here to there.
Gary Bettman says they're still preliminary in those talks. They've got loads of flexibility, so they're in no rush to make a decision.
Frank just made Edmontonians very happy people. As he mentioned, that might be a site for these games. And Jay, you and I have stayed at that hotel that's connected to the arena, and then we went to a bar behind a bookshelf in the same place. It's like a magical land.
That's right, and I imagine that bar, well, would not be populated with anyone, because it seems like that wouldn't really be appropriate for social distancing. But I will tell you, Dan, that the Canadian Football League would love to come back as well. Randy Ambrosie, commissioner, has pushed the league's start of the season until at least July. And now it appears there may be potential conflict between the league and its players, as we see in the latest edition of 3 Downs.
This is 3 Downs. I'm Dave Naylor, joined by Farhan Lalji. And Farhan, a week ago, we talked about the spirit of cooperation between the Canadian Football League and its Players Association as they work through various models and scenarios where the league could play amid the coronavirus pandemic. It sounds like the mood between the two sides has gone south since then. Tell us what happened.
Well, it all happened on a conference call on Friday, and it really revolves around the topic of paragraph 16 in a standard player contract, which basically states that the two sides understand and agree that if the league's operations are suspended at any point, that all contracts would be terminated. Now, that's a pretty dangerous line, because essentially it could create a scenario where everybody in the league is a free agent if there's no 2020 season. The Players Association is not looking for that. They were hoping to create maybe a small window of time where selected players could potentially opt out to pursue other opportunities. The league didn't want to entertain that discussion on any level. The conference call ended very quickly, and the two sides haven't spoken since.
Yeah, from what I can tell, a big part of the disagreement here has to do with the interpretation of suspension of operations in that paragraph 16. I think the CFL looks at it as, hey, suspension of operations is what the XFL did. And that even in a scenario where the CFL has to push its 2020 season to 2021, they don't consider that a suspension of operations. The league, as a business, would still consider operating. The other thing is just with so much uncertainty in the world and certainly around the CFL in its future, I don't think they want another layer of uncertainty that they see could be rather chaotic with so many players granted free agency.
Well, no doubt. And the Players Association isn't looking to create chaos, and they don't want a second layer of free agency. They understand this is only going to impact a couple of players, but really for them, it comes down to the right to work within the given industry. So if the CFL doesn't have a season and the NFL does, and there are a couple of opportunities there, they want those players to be able to explore those. If you're a global player and you want to go back to your domestic leagues and get paid to play football, they want the players to be able to do that. They're willing to work with the league to create a scenario where there's still, by and large, certainty and potential ramifications for if there are no opportunities and the players want to come back to their existing contracts. They're willing to look at all of that, but to do that, they've got to get back to the table. And right now, the league doesn't seem to have the desire to want to do that.
Well, as you say, it affects such a small number of players. When you think of the number of CFL players who, based off their 2019 season, that weren't able to go to the NFL this past offseason, but would be able to go opportunity-wise sometime this summer. It feels like if, and I say if, the Canadian Football League determines it's not going to play in 2020, that those could be handled on a case-by-case basis as opposed to throwing such a wide net of potential free agency over roughly 500 players. We know there's a lot of uncertainty about whether the Canadian Football League will play in 2020. Now we have some uncertainty over what will happen if it doesn't play in 2020. For Farhan Lalji, I'm Dave Naylor. This has been 3 Downs.
Fridays are CFL Encore nights on TSN. This Friday, it's Anthony Calvillo night, 7:30 Eastern. It's Al's Argos from 2011 when he became pro football's all-time leading passer. Then at 10:30, a little something for the folks out in the 306. It's the season opener against Saskatchewan from 2010. Interesting news from Roger Goodell, Dan, on Thursday. Not just the fact that he's going to be conducting the NFL draft from his basement, but also the fact that he has said, and he told the NFL Network, the NFL still plans to play a full season, and they hope to have the schedule out in just a few weeks. And how could you blame them when all that hype is coming out of Tampa Bay, or should I say, Tompa Bay?
Well, they better start the season quick because Tom Brady might be in jail soon, considering what's going on for him in Tampa. The first few days he's there, he gets caught in a park when you aren't supposed to be in parks. And now he was caught in someone's backyard, which he was not supposed to be in. He was supposed to be going to his offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich's house to pick up some equipment. Instead, he went to the neighbor's house. Guess what? We have clips from that guy.
So, Tom, you didn't knock. You didn't ring the doorbell. You're pretty confident that that was Byron's house, which I think is hilarious. And the houses look very similar, so I don't blame you. I'll never forget the look on his face. And he goes, hey, how's it going, man? And I go, like, sarcastically, I'm like, I don't know. You tell me, dude. Like, like, who are you? And then he looked at me with the most confused face. I'll never forget it the rest of my life. And he just goes, Am I in the wrong house? And I said, I think so, but like, who are you looking for? Like, where are you supposed to be? And he said, is this Byron's house? And then, like, right then and there, my body just clicked, and I was like, holy Tom Brady is in my house. That's the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, and my body like froze, like to the point like my body wanted to say like Tom, but I couldn't. My body could not. It couldn't even speak. And then by the time like I could get my composure, he was like, "Oh, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." Grabs his bags and just is gone. I don't think I've ever seen someone like leave a house faster. And I stood up in my kitchen and I was like, oh my God, Tom Brady was in my house. Like, this did not just happen.
Dude,
okay.
Is this like Byron's house? So Tom Brady sent out a tweet Thursday afternoon. Trespassing in parks, breaking and entering, just making myself at home in Tompa Bay. Tompa Bay is a term that he's trying to trademark since he's been there. And we discovered when you say it out loud, it kind of sounds like you're Thurston Howell trying to say Tampa Bay. Tompa Bay.
Tompa Bay. Yeah, you need an ascot or something like that when you say it. I just want to say that TMZ Sports went very deep into that interview with that guy who lives next to Byron Leftwich. Like that was an extensive interview with that man. We learned more from that man than I would have ever wanted to know. But kind of a cool story for him, for sure.
Yeah. Sorry for all the squeaking if you're hearing squeaking. Apparently my washing machine's on and it's on the spin cycle, so I apologize.
Okay. All right, that's weird. I thought maybe you had a mice problem there, but I know you've got 2 cats wandering around all the time, so I couldn't see that being a problem for you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Hey, golf is ready to return June 11th. That's what they have planned. But as Bob Weeks is about to tell us, you might see golf even sooner than then.
We don't know exactly where yet, and we don't know exactly when yet. But just when we needed a little bit of live golf more than ever, it seems that Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson are set to deliver. Turner Sports revealed on Wednesday that the two have agreed to play a matchup just like their November 18 match that took place in Las Vegas. That's the one where Phil Mickelson won $9 million. This time, however, all the money raised will go to COVID-19 relief, and they won't be playing alone. They'll have partners. Tom Brady will play alongside Mickelson, and Peyton Manning will pair up with Tiger Woods. Both those quarterbacks are single-digit players and very good. They've played in the Pebble Beach Pro-Am and a number of other Pro-Ams over the years as well, so it should be a fun engagement. Now, what we don't know yet is the exact date. Likely sometime in mid-May. The exact location, it will be in Florida in all likelihood, and possibly at the Medalist Golf Course where Tiger Woods is a member. Those details are still to be ironed out. Also needed is the PGA Tour to sign a release allowing Mickelson and Woods to play in this. They hold their television rights. That is expected to be a mere formality. So even though there's a lot that's not known yet, it's something to look forward to for golf fans. In fact, probably all sports fans. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson set for the match. Champions for charity.
Okay, when we come back, insider trading. That's next. All right, it's time for us to walk over somewhere. Actually, I just want to show you something, Dan. You know, to keep my feet warm, I'm in the basement, right? So it's cold. So to keep my feet warm, I've got all my daughter's stuffed animals here. Just keeping my toes nice and toasty.
Very smart.
I thought it was pretty genius.
I just wanted to show you something that that showed up on my door today. Oh my God! Look at that!
Yeah.
That's how you quarantine. Thank you, Coors Light.
All right. Very nice. I got mine a week ago.
Oh,
I'm not even joking.
For the weekend.
You need to move closer to civilization.
Yeah, I know. There's a few things that you can set your watch by during this pandemic. The Prime Minister and the President speaking every day. Our show on Monday to Friday and on the Morning Loop. And the insiders showing up every Tuesday and Thursday. Hey, it's Thursday.
Here are your insiders, Bob McKenzie, Darren Dreger, and Pierre Lebrun. Gentlemen, 6 weeks from when we last saw NHL hockey, there seems to finally be an actual plan to finish the season, do a playoffs, and award the Stanley Cup. Still a lot of things to be sorted out before they actually can pull that off. But Bob, how would this plan look?
Well, you're right, James. It's everything subject to health officials, government officials, from region to region, country to country, and so forth. All of that said, the National Hockey League is looking at this in phases, and we're currently in phase one, and we have been for a while, and that is basically quarantine, lockdown, self-isolation, nothing tangibly really happening. But the NHL is optimistic that at some point here, and when that is, we can talk about some more, but maybe to go into phase two. And phase two would be players from Europe coming back to North America, players from all over the world basically reporting back to their base camps, their teams, if permitted, and getting into quarantine for a 2-week period where they would train, small group training, start to ramp it up. At that point, maybe after 2 weeks, they could get to phase three, which would be the much talked about 4 divisional cities that would host multiple teams in those locations, and that there would be a 2 to 3 week training camp there. And then, of course, phase 4, if all goes well, would be games. And the NHL is still stressing regular season games plus playoff games, but that's kind of what the big picture looks like in a perfect world.
That would be a perfect world, Bob, no question about that. But the best case scenario for some around the league, pie in the sky thinking, if you will, in beginning phase 2, is the second, maybe the third week of May. Best case scenario would be the 15th of May. And you're right, they'd bring the NHL players back to their NHL cities and they'd kick into phase 2, allowing small groups of players to return to their NHL facilities and begin working out both on and off the ice. The NHL and the NHLPA are currently talking about the restart strategies now, but there are some NHL clubs out there, guys, that aren't nearly as optimistic, and they just don't see it being safe enough to return even in isolated conditions anytime soon. What we know is this, and the Commissioner's Office of the National Hockey League continues to stress this. They can plan, they can strategize, but until the health officials give the clearance, hockey isn't returning.
TSN senior hockey reporter Frank Saravalli reported that there were several identified cities as prime candidates for these regionalized games, including Toronto and Edmonton. Pierre, how many cities do you think there may be in the mix for this?
Yeah, so what I was told today, further to Frank's excellent reporting, is that the NHL is in the process of vetting 12 NHL cities right now, 12 cities. And they're not going to zero down to 4 really until the last moment. And the reason for that is obvious. They don't know right now where the hotspots are going to be in terms of where this pandemic heads a couple months from now when they hope to return to the ice. So they're going to look at all these different cities, get them all ready to go, and at some point cut that list down. But because of that, guys, you're going to hear a lot of different cities thrown out there as being part of this group, and they are, but it doesn't mean that they'll make the cut at the end of the day. And yes, Toronto, Edmonton, as Frank mentioned, Dallas, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and Columbus, all part of that list of 12, I'm told. And when you get to the playoffs, it might be 4 in the opening round, down to 2 in the second round, and down to 1 perhaps for the final 2 rounds. All ideas that could change, but that's the plan at this point.
Still a ton of progress to be made, still a ton of logistical issues, but it is at least a plan and something for fans to hope for.
When we return, we'll tell you what we messed up. You're watching Jay and Dan.
Time now for Who Delivered, presented by McDelivery. On this day in 1989, the Dallas Cowboys drafted Troy Aikman first overall. Aikman played 12 seasons for the Cowboys, leading them to 3 Super Bowl titles, and his career as Dallas's all-time leading passer. So with that draft pick, the Cowboys certainly delivered. Time for You Blew It. Did we mess anything up?
Well, I don't know about that, but we did forget to say one thing, Dan. Elvis Merzlikins signed a 2-year extension with Columbus on Thursday. So I guess Elvis will return to the building, and Bobrovsky will not because he's in Florida. Not doing so well.
Yeah, Elvis definitely staying in the building. See ya!